Hello, this video is chapter 27, objective 2B. So we're going to talk about the female reproductive anatomy and some of its structures. We previously talked about in 2A, the male. So the male was done in a previous video. Again, you should know some of this just from the lab class as far as where everything is located. So if you're not sure, if none of this looks familiar, go back and take a look at the lab portion so that way you know where all of your structures are. So let's go ahead and jump on in. We're going to take a look at the structure of the ovary. So I want you to go ahead and get out your handouts. I'm going to close this off real quick and we're going to take a look at there we go. So we're going to look at the structure of the ovary. I'm going to flip this and move this over so that way you guys don't have to worry about seeing that. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're seeing here. Again, this should be handout about maybe 235 or so. I want you to take a look at this time right here. So this lets you know kind of the order that you're going to go. So we're going to start here at number 1, which is the primary follicle. So again, this is what would be happening inside of the ovary. This is just kind of showing you how the events occur. I also want you to notice, again, you can't see it very well on here because of the black and white issue right here, but you have got all of these blood vessels. I was trying to find red here so that way we can see this. So you've got a lot of blood vessels right here. And their job, like y'all know, hormones are going to travel through the bloodstream to get to their target location. So the blood vessels, this is where we're going to get follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from. They're going to come in by way of the blood vessels and enter into the ovary here. Now the ovary is going to contain many of these primary follicles right here. So each month, only some of these are going to mature. Now you're born with all the primary follicles you're ever going to have. And then each month, a few of these are going to actually mature, and you can kind of see that maturation process as it goes. Only some of these are going to mature, and only one of these is going to be ejected from the ovary. So that's what's going on right here. So this primary follicle is then going to turn into, we'll get to the hormones and exactly what's causing this to happen in the next video. But your primary follicle is then going to mature into a growing follicle, which will then, notice where the egg is, okay? And then that is going to end up maturing over time. And then this mature follicle right here is eventually going to be ejected. So the egg is going to eject. That is called ovulation. Now, what you're left with is this empty follicle because the egg has already been ejected. Now, this empty follicle, known as the corpus luteum, is going to actually be secreting quite a few hormones that, again, we're going to talk about in the next video. And that corpus luteum will eventually dissolve, and it's going to regress and just stay, so it'll disappear. So this is 2 parts here, and you have to know both parts as far as what the egg is doing and what the corpus luteum is doing. Now, if you take a look at the next page that we've got, you've got the phases of the menstrual cycle right here. Now, the menstrual cycle is going to be 28 days duration. I was trying to spell both words at the same time, and that didn't work out. So it's going to be a 28-day duration. And it contains 4 phases. Now, the problem with some of this is there's some overlap in the phases, and I get that, and it just is what it is. So your follicular phase is going to go from day 0 to day 14, okay? Now, the ovulation phase will occur at day 14, and we'll talk about what triggers that to occur. And then the luteal phase is going to go from day 15 to day 28. The menstrual phase is going to go from day 0 through day 7. So I told y'all there was a little overlap going on here. So the first 7 days of the follicular phase is actually menstruation, okay? What you can also notice here, which is really interesting, is if you look at the lining of the uterus, so this right here is the uterus, and if you look at the lining of the uterus, it's thick during the menstrual phase, and then that's going to be shed off. So that's what's represented here. And that's going to happen during those first 7 days of the follicular phase. And then as you notice, after ovulation has occurred, what's going on between the follicular phase and ovulation, you can see that inner lining of the uterus is starting to build back up again. And then if implantation of a fertilized egg occurs, well, that will start the pregnancy. But if that doesn't happen, again, that inner lining, that endometrial lining, the inside lining of the wall, will build up, and then if no fertilized egg occurs, then that inside lining, that endometrial layer, will then shed off, and that happens each month. And right down here you can see those layers of the uterus. So you've got your endometrial layer, that's going to be the innermost layer of the uterus. This is the most active layer. This is composed of epithelial tissue, right? Because the inside lining of all of your hollow body cavities and organs is going to be epithelial tissue. And again, that's going to build each month and then shed. The myometrium, if you remember, myo means muscle, so this is your muscle layer, and this is mostly smooth muscle. Again, you don't have any control over this, so it's going to be involuntary. That's going to be smooth muscle. And then the perimetrium, which is the outermost layer, also known as VISC, visceral peritoneum. Sorry, I had to spell that. Remember, that's that connective tissue layer, outermost connective tissue. Well, visceral is going to be on the organ side, sorry. So these are your 3 layers. Again, this is going to be connective tissue. These are going to be your 3 layers of the uterus. Now, when we're looking at the structure of the fallopian tube, which is what this right here is. Here's the ovary. So the job of the fallopian tube, all of this is fallopian tube. This is getting into the uterus over here, so it's cut off. You're not seeing all of that. The fimbriae, if you notice, there's no physical contact between the ovary and the fallopian tube. So the ovary, remember, is ejecting the egg, the mature egg. And so these fimbriae are going to act like little cilia. They're going to sweep that egg. So that egg is going to actually go into the fallopian tube. So that's the job of the fimbriae, is to sweep that egg and capture that egg to get it into the fallopian tube. Now, the infundibulum, this is kind of like, it kind of looks like a funnel, I suppose. If you think about a funnel, this is the fimbriae are attached to it, and this is where those fimbriae are trying to get that egg to go into. So this is going to be the entry point, if you want to think about it, into the actual tube itself. The ampulla, this is going to be the widest section of the fallopian tube, and this is actually where fertilization occurs. Now, we knew that fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube, but specifically it's going to occur in the ampulla part, most of the time. And then the isthmus is just going to connect the fallopian tube to the uterus, okay? So those are your structures of the fallopian tube. We're going to talk about the female HPG axis in the next video. So this picture right here is a picture that someone had given me, and this is just showing you kind of what that uterus looks like, a real person's uterus. So you can see the uterus right here. I can't remember what the person had going on. You can see there's definitely some injury going on, and that's what they were probably going in and cleaning up. I can't remember exactly what was happening. But she said, hey, do you want, looks like endometriosis, honestly. Do you want a picture of what they did when I was in surgery? I said, oh, sure. So that's kind of where that happened. You can definitely see the ovary here. You can see the fallopian tube right there that is going into the uterus. So it is pretty neat stuff to look at when you actually get a real picture of stuff. I encourage you all, we're going to take a look at this in the next video, but I encourage you all to take a look at this video. It's about 15 minutes long, and you do have a handout in your packet that kind of steps you through while Armando Sudigan is going over it, kind of walks you through filling it out as you go along. So I encourage you all to take a look at that. And that's going to conclude our video over the anatomy. And then the next video, Objective 3, we're going to get into the regulation. Now, when you hear regulation, you know it's going to have to do with hormones. So we'll get into that in the next video.